All right, folks, we're going to get it started. Nice to see you out there. I'm Kurt Kubasek. Nice to have you here. Philly Drum Project. Super excited to have you in our virtual clinic space for the evening with Sarah Thawer. We'll be introducing her shortly. Really excited to have everybody here. Let us know where you're from. See a good mix of names, some familiar names on the list, and some names I've never seen before. So um, let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat. We will be using the chat as our kind of main way of bantering in between each other and commenting on things that Sarah is saying. Or if you have a question you want to submit to Sarah, feel free to throw it in the chat. Let us know if you want to ask that question directly, um, or you can send it privately to one of us if you don't want to share that publicly in the chat as well. Eddie, thanks, repping the Tribe Called Quest tonight. But great to see you out there, Eddie, and I hope everybody's been well since our last event. It's been kind of a crazy month as the world slowly opens back up a little bit and everybody's schedules fills up a little bit. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. And with us tonight is Mike Ragusa, as always. Mike, how you doing tonight?
Doing great. Great to be here.
Having trouble hearing you. Might have to do with your headphones. I'm not sure.
Can you hear me now?
Let's see.
How about now?
It's been a funny night of trying to get sound to work already. So we'll see if Mike can get itself sorted out. I'm just gonna remove your spotlight for now, Mike. Feel free to jump in and spotlight yourself if you can figure it out. So yeah, we have a host of ideas for events coming up for Philly Drum Project. Wanted to just let you know that we've got some stuff in the works that we will be announcing throughout the night towards the end of this event. Keep in mind that we kind of have three different types of events that we do. This is our Philly Drum Project Presents event, one of our bigger events where we get to bring in artists kind of from around the world. And we're excited to have technically an international artist tonight, with Sarah being from Toronto. Then we also have Beat, Brews, and Banter events. Those are our old school events, but virtually kind of similar in that it's mostly just a conversation with an artist, getting to know their perspective on things, hearing them play. And then the other style of event we have is open drum. So our next open drum event will be coming up in July. That's an opportunity for you to play for the greater Philly Drum Project community. We will be hosting this one virtually. We just figure the summer is already a little crazy with vacationing and people's schedules being a little wild with if they get back on the road or whatever. So we're going to keep open drum virtual this summer, but we hope to kind of get everything back into person if the fall kind of presents itself as being the right time for that. Be looking for some in-person events this summer. We're hoping to get at least one off the ground. And please get involved with Philly Drum Project if you like what we're doing. We'll have some messages coming into the chat letting you know how you can donate. We can only do this through the giving of our members. We receive all of our funding fully through the people that are enthusiastic about what we do. I will be putting a link in the chat letting you know where you can donate to the organization. And again, just be looking for some events coming up in the future from us. Let's see here. Just want to make sure I have everything on my list that I covered. So yeah, I think without further ado, we should just get Sarah going in a moment here. I'm going to quickly read you a little bit about Sarah. Or you know what, I might relate to you just kind of my own impression of Sarah first when she came across my radar. I first saw Sarah like 3 or 4 years 4 years ago on Facebook, and but when she really like got like to like draw my attention was the Drumeo thing she did on incorporating Indian rhythms into drum set playing and adapting those rhythms to drum set, which was amazing. But really, Sarah's just got this like infectious energy for playing the drums fearlessly. And that's something that I think we all define maybe differently person to person in some sense. But when we see someone being fearless on drums, we usually can sense it, and it's just something to behold. And something to like embrace, because that fearlessness is vulnerable in some sense. But Sarah's never shown anything but like confidence in everything I've seen her play, while pushing the envelope of drumming in some ways, and also doing it in her own way with her own perspective. So you can see Sarah out in the world performing. She's performed with some people like Jon Batiste from the Tonight Show, Tegan and Sara, which is really awesome, great band. She's collaborated with the Ghost Note band and Robert Sput Searight and kind of that snarky puppy world of people through the whole Zildjian series of drummers. And when Sara was is one of the people on this Zildjian series, which if you haven't seen, is quite amazing. We played some of the audio from the beginning. It's pretty it's not everybody in the drumming world that matters, but it's a really amazing slice of some of the incredible talent out there that's associated with Zildjian. And just seeing Sara on that again is another, just like seeing her continue to come into the limelight as somebody that I'm really looking out for. So yeah, that's kind of my introduction to Sara, and I think her playing and her spirit and her energy speaks for itself. So I'm going to give you guys just a chance to listen to Sara, listen and watch Sara play, and then we will go from there. Let's see here. Sara, you out there? I want to be able to there you are. Okay, so Sarah's going to do a little playing, and then we'll talk a little bit afterwards.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here. Just want to make sure you can hear me and my mic. Just want to tap.
Sara, are you, let's see here.
Tell me. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I lost your audio.
Oh, no. Nothing?
Okay. Matt, you can hear. So maybe it's my problem. So this is what we're going to do. Sara, get going.
Yeah.
And I will, yeah, it's definitely me. All right,
Sara,
so Sara,
can you hear me?
You can get going. You can start playing. I'm gonna fix myself.
Okay, I'm gonna do a little drumming.
Everybody in the chat's telling me that you're good to go.
Amazing. Okay, let's get to it. 1 second. 1 second.
It's happened to the best of us.
I'm having too much fun. That's what it is.
Oh, woo! Up. Nice job. Amazing playing, Sarah. Ooh.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, get a breath there. I know.
Oh my God, it's been so long since I've like done an open drum solo in front of people, virtually in front of people. So it like felt so good. So I'm so happy.
Oh, I just love that you took it. You just kept going with it. You were committed and went for that long form, which was beautiful.
I tried. Well, thank you all for your patience.
Yeah, well, of course, and thanks for your patience with my audio. Apparently, wasn't behaving at the beginning of that. So, anyways, yeah, it's amazing to have you, Sarah. I don't even know where to begin, other than just to say thank you so much for being here and joining us. It's exciting to have our first international artist, close neighbor, but still it counts, and it's just awesome to have you here.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here and really appreciate what you guys have been doing. And I've seen the people that have come to play for this amazing event, like Spanky, whom I love so much, and so many other artists, and all the drummers and musicians that come from Philadelphia are incredible. So the pleasure and honor is all mine. And if you don't mind, I would love to start doing a little bit of rambling about myself, about me, how I started. So, all right. I'm born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and I started playing drums at age 2. First stage performance was at age 5. So my introduction to music was through my dad, and that was primarily Bollywood music, Indian music. And Indian music has a lot of percussion, a lot of Indian percussion, such as names like tabla or dholak and a bunch of these other beautiful names of percussion instruments. And, growing up, I don't think I ever fit into any music circle. For me, it was, playing in Indian bands, but having the role of imitating Indian percussion rather than, hey, I'm listening to Steve Gadd, or hey, I'm listening to Buddy Rich, or a lot of the people that I met later on in life, I would ask them, what did you start playing? Either someone said they started playing in church, they played gospel music, or they're listening to Led Zeppelin. And for me, it was like none of the above. For me, it was like, hey, I'm listening to percussionists. And back then, I was very resentful of that because when I applied to all these universities, they said, can you sight read this? Can you play the coordination with your left foot and all that? And I'm just like, I can't do any of that. Like, I don't know, like I was completely self-taught. And just to jump around a little bit, my dad, out of love, he's like, I don't want you to play drums, Sarah. You're gonna ruin your life. And drummers are at the back of the stage, and drummers arrive first and they leave last. He's like, I'm just trying to protect you. So what he would do is that, like, I would have like drums all over the house, and when he would be gigging, I'd be his drummer. But I'm like, put me in drum lessons, and he would say no. And he's like, one day you're gonna realize it someday. So what ended up happening is, like, by the time I turned 18, we did some touring together, and he's like, okay, like, you're really serious about it. I'm like, yeah, Dad, I'm really serious about it. Okay, cool. I do my auditions, and it's like, boom, downhill from there. And I felt so bad because I'm just like, is there something wrong with me? Am I like not talented? Am I not gonna make it? And then what happened is there's one school called York University, and it's a university in Toronto, and I went to that school, and it gave me like a full Oscar Peterson jazz scholarship. So I'm like, wait a second, something's not making sense. So if one school's going to give me a scholarship and every other school's going to decline me, what does that say about me? So for this one school, what I had to do is I played some time, played some pocket, and they're like, do you? And I did whatever, and they're like, whoa, this sounds great. So then I realized that I played drums in a very unorthodox way. I didn't care about what a paradiddle was. I didn't care about French, German. None of that stuff mattered to me. It was about listening to Indian grooves and saying, okay, what is from a tabla, and then going on the drums and just like listening to music. And then when I was in the university, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to prove all these like Berkeley Musicians Institute, all these people wrong. And I'm going to go through all of the syncopation, stick control, coordination books, and then one day I'm gonna face you and say, hey, look at my technique now, man. So then I felt like I was born again after that. That's when I got into fusion, like heavy duty fusion. That's when I got into like heavy duty hip hop. And when I was in school, I got introduced to gospel music and started playing in a church for 5 to 6 years. So I felt like that this was a new Sarah that was born. And now I'm at a place in my life where I feel like I've combined both of these worlds, the self-taught world, and now this so-called educated, which I don't really think I am, but on paper it says educated, it has a degree. But so now it's like these two sides of me that I'm bringing to the table. So that's, stuff about my upbringing and how I got into doing what I'm doing. And now, I mean, pre-COVID, touring, session work, around the world, gigs, and right now I'm working on my own music and trying to kind of push that forward. And that's a little bit about me. And one thing about today is, I can yap, I'm a talker, I can talk nonstop, but I want to make sure that you all benefit and have your questions answered. So I would love to like just open the floor and let's, get into some conversation.
Awesome. It was amazing to hear your story. I actually had a clarifying question. You said you were touring with your father before you convinced him to get you drum kit lessons. Were you touring on tabla? What were you touring on?
I was touring on drum set.
Oh, drum set. Okay.
Drum set. Like he put me into tabla lessons at a very young age, just because he loved Indian music and he's like, it's important to know. But when I would play drums in his band, there would be gigs where there would be no percussionists, so there would only be drummers. And in Indian music, you need percussionists. It's like, I always give this example. If you go to a concert hall and let's say you're going to watch Justin Bieber, okay? You look at the stage and you'll see the drum set center stage. And then you'll see the percussionist being the supporting role of the drummer. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you play like folk Indian music or Indian music, the drummer is actually the supporting role of the percussionists. So in doing these gigs with my dad, where he would purposely not hire any percussionists, he would say, I want you to emulate that tabla sound on the drums. And it would be like a festival of like 10,000 people. And when you play Bollywood music or any song that has a sound, everyone's looking for that sound. So it really made me like dive into creativity at a very early age and seeing things in a very different way, which I feel that really helped the sound or whatever that I'm doing today. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about then, like, now that you've gone through this, starting with traditional music, learning how to adapt drum set, like without or teach, like adapting drum set yourself. You weren't really like learning from anyone, but kind of, it sounds like, from yourself, and then going through the music school process, educating yourself, so going through the trials of a conventional American jazz percussion education with syncopation, all these books. And then on the other end now, how do you look at like the concept of like adapting drums, adapting other styles of music to drum set? And I think this becomes controversial sometimes within, most often, I think I've heard the conversation come up with Latin music, I think, because it was one of the musics that was adapted earliest in jazz tradition. But I'm so curious, like now on the other end, like what do you think about that process, especially having gotten really deep into some of these drum set heavy music, like hip hop and fusion and all that?
Yeah. So for me, I was very disappointed in the approach that was taken to learn new styles of music. And like, I love books. I respect books. I think they break down things very easily. But in my personal experience, I've only kind of gone through 3 books: The New Breed, Syncopation, and Stick Control. And I've literally only used 2 pages of every book. That's it. Right? Like,
yeah, classic.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And for me, some of the people that I met throughout this journey, they were like, hey, we bought this like a book that's made by this Cuban drummer expert, and we're gonna like read number 1 and number 2 and learn these mambo grooves, and we're gonna get a Latin gig. And I said, oh my God, like that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Like music is a culture, music is a feeling, music is the food that you taste in your mouth, music is the way your head and the way your body moves, the way you sway, the way you hold your sticks, the way you carry yourself, the clothes you wear. So for me, living in Toronto is very diverse in terms of genres of music and the people. Like we have venues here that are dedicated to Cuban and Brazilian music, venues to hip hop only, gospel heavy churches, straight ahead swing. Like, so to be a working musician in Toronto, you had no choice but to really dive into all of these genres, and you had to dive into them very authentically, because the people who were like playing Cuban music, they were immigrants from Cuba. So there's no way you could just get a book and memorize a rhythm and play it, because there's so much more to it. So that was one thing that I felt that there was not a lot of awareness of, and because the rise of YouTube and all these, learn the 5 most used funk patterns, and it became too gimmicky, and I feel like they were getting a lot of views, and then the wrong messages were sent. It's like, it's better if you have a Cuban gig coming up, you listen to one song from one album, understand the vibe, get a basic coordination, and do the gig, rather than spending 10 days and learning like 20 exercises from a book. So that's, how I feel about that.
Yeah, I love it. I'm right there with you. But I see somebody has a question in the chat.
Yes.
Since we're talking about your Indian sound emulation.
Yeah.
If you'd like to demonstrate any part of that. And I know there's like a really great Drumeo where you lay out a lot of stuff with PDFs that I know I just want to mention people can access after this. But that was a couple years ago. So I'm sure your perspectives, in some way shifted again.
100%. And I can go down the rabbit hole that you warned everybody about. So one thing that I'll say is I would love to show you like 2 things. So there's this Indian groove called the Kerwa. I talk about this all the time, so I apologize if you've heard it already. And this groove is spelled Kherwa, Kherwa, and I talk about it in my drumeo lesson a couple of years ago. This groove is like the Indian backbeat. Like if you come to North America and you want to fit in to play gigs, you learn 2 and 4 on the snare. If you want to go to India and you want to just play a basic beat that I don't like some terms like basic and simple, because, not to get all deep, I don't believe that there's any such thing as simple and basic. Anyway, but we can go down that rabbit hole later. But so the equivalent of hitting 2 and 4 on the snare, in this Indian groove, you hit the snare on the of every 16th note. So it goes 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and . So let me play it so you guys can hear it in context. Okay. So I'm going to play a backbeat 2 and 4 thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Now the Indian Kerwa. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and backbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Kerwa. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1. Boom, boom. So this groove, it didn't originate on the drum set at all. It originated on the tabla, or there's another percussion instrument called the dholak, Dholak, and that's like one of my favorite percussion instruments to play. And how I emulated this specific groove on the drums. So for me, it's not. So when you look at a page in a book and you see a quarter note or an 8th note, for me, seeing a note is very vague, right? If you just hear a quarter note, like if I hear from the tabla, just the ka, what is the ka? Is it like a tight sound? Is it like really articulated? And so paying attention to detail and to sound source, especially when taking percussion grooves onto the drum kit to get that sound, is super important. So for example, when I was like learning this groove, so I remember when I went to my dad before we did some of these gigs where there would be no percussionists, he would say, all right, play it for me. And I'd play it. And technically I'm playing this beat correct. And he would say, Sarah, he's like, it doesn't feel good. I'm like, I don't understand what it means. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't feel good? I'm playing it right. He's like, it doesn't feel good. And I'm just like, and my dad's like not a teacher at all. He's like, all right, go. I'd be like 10 and he'd be like, okay, go up, figure it out, and come back down when you're ready. And I'm like, okay. Now I'm grateful for that because it really helped me do like self-engineering, and it built my intuition to figure it out myself, and it opened my awareness. That's why I'm not a fan of books. Not that I'm not a fan of books, but I use books, but I don't like to rely on books. It's because you're just kind of getting answers rather than you sit there and you figure it out. And then you'll find that the more you try and figure it out, the easier that it gets. And just the whole awareness of mind, body, spirit kind of all play together. And that's, I think, to emulate any groove, that having that connection is super important to me, in my opinion. So anyway, so the Kerouac, he's like, it doesn't feel good. So I'm like, I don't understand why. So I listened to it more. So it was the dynamics, it was the dynamics of the snare. When I'm playing the it's not just that. I'm hitting it, right? It's like the rim shot, and I'm feeling, and then the bass of the tabla, the left hand usually, was on the kick drum. And then on the tabla, on the percussion instruments, there would be ghost notes played. And the ghost notes would be played with the fingers. So how can I, it's like playing a backbeat with no ghost notes. Ghost notes, in my opinion, really help with the feeling, right? So I'm like, how can I emulate the hands playing ghost notes on a tabla? So I did this. I need a better mic stand. Oh my god. Okay. So playing the E's and U's softly. And look at my volume control within my limbs, like between them. It's so, and it's like, this just doesn't apply to like this groove. Like this applies to a rock beat. This applies to everything, is this attention to detail. And I feel like we live in such a beautiful day and age where information is readily available on social media to learn anything that we want to learn. And I think there's this false there's a lie going around that, hey, you're a good drummer if you can play fast. You're a good drummer if you have so much facility. And it's kind of the opposite. It's like when I was applying for like high school, for me was like 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, when I was applying to university, they were complaining that I couldn't read syncopation. And now it's like everybody can read syncopation, but there's no like the feeling and the depth and the understanding is not there. And like in my humble opinion, or at least in my experience, I found it easier to catch up theoretically or get the coordination stuff. And it was much harder to work on the intuition, to work on the maturity. So maturity is like in your three limbs, the volume control. So I'm not going, that sounds like a drum machine. So what is my balance in thinking about the tabla? So hi-hat, I'm going tip, shaft, ghost notes, right? And then even the next level to like prove my dad wrong, that, hey, dad, I have feel, don't be fooled. So understanding swing and straight. It's funny that like I didn't understand that terminology, and it's like not that. So a lot of the statements that I say are very controversial because they're in my belief in music and in art. There's no one way, right? We all are made differently, and our brains work differently. So there's not one way and there's no right answer, in my opinion. So for me, growing up, no one told me, hey, play this groove straight. Hey, play this groove swung. For me, there was always a reference. It would be, and I'll be like, okay, that's like straight. Or they would go, and then later I found out that it swung. So for me, sometimes I find that in school or in this part of the world, which it's amazing to have terminologies for everything. But I think understanding the music first and then the terminology is important. Or if you learn a terminology first, right away go to the music and then understand what it means. So anyway, to me, they're like straight versus swung, just specifically in the Kerouac groove, talking about like Indian percussion being applied to the drum set is so important. And even like to go further, like deeper, depending on where you live in India, the swing of the Kerouac changes. It's like if you play jazz in Philadelphia, if you play jazz in New York, if you play jazz in LA, if you play jazz in Toronto, there's a sound. Like each city has a sound. And it's like some people are pushing or pulling, or their swung is tight or loose or eighth notey. So if I'm playing the Kerouac and I'm playing it like straight, which I don't like to play it straight, I like to play it either in between in the spectrum or like swung. So here's it straight, which I don't like to do, but anyway, just for the example, one knee, do good, and I'm still swinging it a bit because it's hard to play it straight because it doesn't feel good straight, but now I'm gonna migrate to kind of like in between swung, then I'm gonna go full on swung and listen to like the difference of the feeling of it. So did you feel there was that spectrum? And the more swung it is, there's more of a bouncy vibe. So like, for example, my background is Gujarati from North India. And in Gujarat, I felt like, yes, like some of the grooves or some of the songs that I've encountered have that swing, but it's also in between. Or some like Punjabi Indian music is very like, or some of the Gujarati music that I love to listen to is, so that's the way I've like spent my time applying Indian percussion to the drums, or even like not even Indian percussion, anything, to learn any sort of genre, because I love to be as versatile as possible. I love like listening to all genres of music because again, it's like so much beyond the music, it's culture, and it's like what is important to each genre of music, right? So for example, if I'm playing jazz, the ride cymbals, everything. The hats is like that key, and the bass drum is feathering, right? But if I'm playing funk, I mean, the kick and the snare is everything. Or when I'm playing Indian music, what is important to the Indian music to give it that sound? So this instrument that I brought up earlier called the dholak, D-H-O-L-A-K. It's like, that's my favorite one of my favorite percussion instruments to play. It's like, I give this explanation. It's not completely accurate, but just imagine in your head, tablas are two drums. Now imagine like you take the two drums and you paste them together and you have a barrel drum. That's the dholak. And usually with dholak, a lot of people wear a pinky ring. They wear a ring on their pinky or a ring on their thumb. So when they're playing, and it's a wooden shell. So when you're let's say you're playing the us with your index finger, which you usually are if you're playing the Kerouac. So if you're wearing the ring on your pinky, so you're hearing that. So when I'd be playing these gigs with my dad to get the feeling of like the percussion instruments, how can I get the oh, the rim. So if I'm like, I would play it like this. And just to have the ring or to have that rim sound, that defines a section. So if I'm playing Kerouac and then add the rim shot, I mean the rim, check it out. So what I did there, I emulated the rim of the dholak with the ring over here. Then the clap stack. I'm think Indian music, people clapping, right? And there's this whole thing that I talk about a lot, and I complain about it, that people wear T-shirts and they say, "Hey, you're not allowed to clap on the 1 and the 3, and you have to clap on the 2 and the 4. And I always stand there, I'm like, hey, don't you dare say that, because I clap on the 1 and the 3 all the time. Because the Kerouac, you have to clap on the 1 and the 3. If the snares are on the you need the to like land it. So emulating the dance form, people clapping. So I'm hitting the stack on the 1 and the 3, or I was hitting it on the 2 and the 4, or I was hitting it in like every quarter. And the thing, like, I didn't pick this up from a book. This was just listening to the records and hearing it, and the byproduct, like without even consciously working on coordination, this worked on my coordination because I was putting my left foot on the ends. I was putting my left foot on the quarters while keeping my snare on the us and keeping it consistent. So yeah, like this stuff is so important. And then I know, when do I put the quarters on the clap? How do I build up from the verse and the chorus? So this stuff in general, aside from the Indian grooves, is so important. And in my opinion, like, this is something that I like to preach, that this shows the difference between maybe a drummer who's starting out, whereas a drummer who is quote unquote experienced. It's like paying attention to these subtle details. Yeah.
The sound of the rim is such a cool texture, especially kind of mixed in a little under the radar the way it is. It has such a nice timbre that I don't think is necessarily part of everybody's sound set.
Totally.
Yeah. And hearing your process with just that one groove and the swing and stuff, I was so curious. Like, I guess you said there's no technical term for these things in the music that you grew up playing. Have you ever heard Indian musicians try to describe that in words some other way?
They just literally play it.
Yeah.
And you kind of just like, you latch onto it. It's even like Cuban music. Like when I've played with, like, they don't, I've a lot of my friends who took like a world drum set lessons, and they would have a teacher who would teach them a mambo, a Cuban rhythm. They would explain it that saying, hey, the feeling of it is a 6/8 over 4/4 kind of feeling, which is fine, because it's definitely good to grasp it and understand it. But I think it's important to be aware that the people who are playing this music, they're not like thinking about it like that. It's
right.
just, you just hear and you just hear it and you just play it. So it's like working on your ear, and I think it's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So maybe this will take us in a different direction.
Yes.
Eddie's curious who your top 3 favorite drummers are.
Oh my God.
And you can think about it for a little bit.
Okay. I mean, I have like too many, but I can just name 3 maybe that I'm currently really checking out. I would say right now I'm checking out a lot of Gary Novak, fusion stuff. Gary Novak, a lot of Justin Tyson. Let me pick one more. Who am I really checking? And Art Blakey right now.
Ooh, nice. Who was the first big name drummer that you latched onto in your journey?
Oh man, I have to think about that. I think it would have been like Dennis Chambers or Vinny. I think like one of them. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. For me, it's like the way I like drumming is, I think, obviously we know the drummer's role is to play pocket, blah, 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 and groove and stuff, which is great. But when I get to do my own stuff and when I get to do jazz or whatever, I really think that like the expression, like keeping the pulse, but then pushing it and then coming back to the pulse is one of my favorite things to do. So when I see like Dennis and Vinny, like they have so much technique and ideas down that there's so much flexibility to go any sort of direction. So that was one of the reasons why I looked up to them and still do. Yeah.
I see the Dennis in you with he's very snare centric with kind of where he starts his like solo ideas, for example. He's very connected to the snare, but then he ventures out, but then he comes back to the snare and then goes back out. And I see that in a lot of what you were doing. this like last year, as I've seen you kind of get into your streaming space and stuff. It's been really exciting. Actually, maybe could we talk a little bit about, like, there was this really awesome video you put out about soloing,
Yeah.
and your approach to pacing a solo, and also how that relates to the actual song that you're playing on.
Yes.
Whether it be like a riff or whatever. But I just like love that, and it was only like 3 minutes long, and I was like, oh, that would be something we could dig into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, soloing, I could solo all day. You know, I'd probably get in trouble and get fired. But if someone hired me to solo, I would have no problem with that. So for me, soloing, I like to break it down in many ways. But the first thing I want to start off by saying is that a lot of the people that I've met and they want to solo, there's like this anxiety that goes up. And actually, it happens to me still today. If I get asked to do a drum solo, I have this rush of anxiety, and right away my mind is like, what do I play? I don't have enough ideas. I need to go practice. That person's faster than me. Everyone's gonna post this on Instagram and it's gonna suck and I'm gonna lose all my followers. So like my mind is already there and I haven't even started. So I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling that, I bet there are a lot of people out there feeling that. So I'm like, okay, let's take the first step. All right. So that's how I like to approach a solo. Let's take the first step. Let's just hit a quarter note. Okay. Let's hit a quarter note. So you've identified a note rate, which is a quarter note, and you pick a sound. Okay, I picked the floor tom. All right. Let me leave some space for a second. Okay, let me hit another quarter note on the high tom. Let me leave some space. Okay, let me hit the middle tom and the snare and then the cross stick. Okay, I'll leave some space. Now let me fill in every quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then dynamics. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now I'm like literally just playing with quarter notes, and maybe I've like gone like by a minute. Okay, let me think in my mind of a favorite, like a paradiddle. Start the paradiddle on the snare. Maybe try it 16th note. So you see, instead of like, for me, like, and I know people who pre-plan solos, and I think that's great. Everybody again works very differently. For me, I don't like to plan that much. I really like to really capture and be in the moment of what I'm feeling. So I always tell people, whether you've been playing drums for 5 minutes, whether you've been playing drums for 5 years or 2 months, I bet my life that any of these people can play a drum solo. It's just the way you approach it, and it's all a mental game. You can do a drum solo with quarter notes and the crowd will go wild. You can do a drum solo with like 30-second triplets or whatever, and the crowd will still go wild. And there's proof of that. If you check out Ash Sowen, if you check out his Zildjian live, pocket, groove, and in his solo-ish moment, he literally lifted up his hands. Like he went back, and everyone's like, whoa. And I think that was like a very big defining moment for me, that the amount of whoa that he got for like not playing and the amount of whoa that other people got for playing 10 times as much, it was the same. So I think like for me, I have to like let that sink in and not be too like this drum solo has to be the fastest, most loudest, crazy drum solo in the world. So that's why I just feel like taking things to it's like the most simplest form, and taking what you have in front of you and making use of it. Like I remember when I did a drum clinic tour in Mexico like 2 or 3 years ago, and somebody came up to me and they said they broke their hand and they only had one hand to play, and they're feeling embarrassed and they don't feel comfortable playing because they think they can't stand up in front of drummers who can play with both hands and so fast. And I said, hey, you have one hand, so use what you got. Put your stick down, use your hands, leave some space, pick up the sticks, hit a cymbal, take a break. So, and then he did that, like, and he got back to me and he said, wow, like that was amazing. And he's like, that was great advice. And so this is what I like to preach. And another thing that I want to preach in soloing, that I'm trying to say things that I didn't say in that video, so it's like new information. But yeah, and like some other things that I like to preach is that it's about emotion and feeling, right? It's like when I'm talking to, I can talk to you like a robot and you won't understand what I'm saying. But if I am talking to you and I am communicating and I mean every single word in this moment, it resonates differently. And I feel like when we're playing a non-melodic instrument that we can like hit the crap out of, which I like to do, obviously, I think the tendency is to not think of it as a vocal instrument. I just think of it like this, right? Why does the singer gets the most money or is at the front of the stage? Because they have lyrics and they're like emoting and pouring their hearts out. And I've always believed that in drumming you can 100% do the same thing. So when soloing or grooving, I like when I hit the crash, I've tried to wire myself that every time I hit the drum, what does it make me feel? Like if I hit a crash, I just like, okay, it feels like a breath of fresh air. Okay, if I hit the kick with the crash, it feels like I'm making some sort of statement. If I'm hitting the snare, what does that make me feel in this moment? And it's like, I really believe that in soloing and in playing, there's a whole like mind, body, spirit connection. And I feel like I don't mean to get all like philosophical, but thank you, because I just
Let's
feel
do it.
like there's so many books out there. I mean, like if anybody wants to learn licks, and like you can just right now go on YouTube and find 500 different ways to play a paradiddle at like any tempo, which I bet any of you can do. But I think, even like when I practice things in the practice room, and let's say I'll be practicing something for like 2 weeks, and then I go on the gig and I'm like, I'm going to play what I practice, and then I screw up. Right. And it's like, I don't know if that's happened to any of you, but it happens to me all the time. So I'm like, why is this happening? I need to understand why. And it's because it's like you're just like mechanically practicing, then you build this up and you get so nervous, rather than taking a deep breath, being in the moment, centering yourself, and then going for it. And I bet you the execution will be incredible. So these are some tips and stuff that I have. Yeah.
Amazing. And the advice of like the embracing the emotion thing is really, that resonates a lot with me. And I know maybe you're like using some of your theatrics of your voice to carry your message further, but like I sensed like a really personal moment in there where you were just like it's so important for you to say that to us, and it's really cool to feel that through your music too. Yeah, so like that like I said, that like bravery thing I think is so cool, and I see it in I see it in a lot of people, and not just drumming, but for when you see someone just play with that vulnerability turned up to 11, along with all of their chops and everything else turned up to 11, or maybe not even, like you're talking about, like you don't have to turn it up to 11 with your chops every time. Think about turning it up to 11 with your emotions, and you might get further. It's deep. It's
That
good.
means a lot to me, and I appreciate that. And I want to say something. It's like, in my mind, I don't think I'm brave. I like when people tell me that I'm confident, I'm like, really? Like, you think I'm confident? Like you should hear what's like going in my mind, So one thing that I've realized is that confidence and bravery is a choice. Whether you're feeling it or not doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can't, I don't know, I can't control what I'm feeling. I can be having a bad day, life can happen, and then the spotlight's on me. I don't feel brave, I feel scared, but I'm going to choose to put my best foot forward and to be as brave as that I can in the moment. So that's like the way I approach being confident, or turning on the switch of confidence and bravery. Like okay, I'll give you a perfect example. I played at this festival in Quebec 4 or 5 years ago now, and it was like my first drum festival, and Vic Firth, they filmed the whole thing, and I messed up. Oh my god, like I actually cried like afterwards, and I thought I wasn't worthy. It was like a whole thing. What happened was, it was my turn to take a drum solo. The band is keeping time, and I was so excited. I was pushing the time, and I did a metric modulation thing, and I lost one. And like when I hit one, I'm like, that's not one. And it was the worst thing of my life. And I had the option that they said, would you like to post it, or do you not want to post it? And I said, post it. And like, no, I think nobody in the comment section maybe paid attention or realized it, but I asked my like teachers or whatever, and they're like, oh, but they're like, it doesn't matter, the feeling and the energy was there. So I make a conscious effort every day to be vulnerable, and it takes a lot out of me, like, but it's an exercise. Even, I'll give you another example. I've been having so much fun in this quarantine time, where I've been like, bringing out my personality to the drums and like doing some like silly corny raps, which I find very funny, but maybe some people don't, but whatever, it's cool. So I took the Everybody Wants to Rule the World song. Who's it by again? Do you guys, what's
Tears for Fears.
Yeah, Tears for Fears. So everyone was doing this whole metric modulation challenge, and I'm like, hey, I want to do something different. So I took the mic and I started like rambling and like trying to be cool and show my independence with my voice and my arms. And I wasn't trying to be like Christina Aguilera singing. Like, that was not the intention. The intention was that I'm just gonna like talk. And the comments that I got, oh my God, like, she's tone deaf. We do not want to see that microphone on her. And like on Facebook, I think the video got like 800,000 views and like it went crazy. And then the funny thing is, within 24 hours, I lost 500 followers on my Instagram, at least, from that video. And I'm like, oh my God. And like, I called my sister, I called my fiance, I'm like, guys, like, am I making a mistake and am I ruining my career? And I even like had this sort of mentor that, I looked up for many years, and she told me, she's like, Sarah, when you show yourself online, you have to have this very professional presence. And I'm like, that's not me. She's like, you're ruining your career. So I said, you know what? I don't care. Like, this is me. This was me, what I was feeling in the moment. I don't care if I lose the followers. I'm going to be vulnerable. And I left it up there. And I mean, followers came back, but it doesn't matter if they did or they didn't. It's just a point to make. Like, I cried. I couldn't sleep for 3 nights, and I was constantly refreshing my pages to see any new comments and to count. And I started counting how many positive comments versus the negative comments, what the percentage on YouTube, the likes versus dislikes, what is it? And it's like, it became this whole obsession thing that I had to like pull myself out of, and my family had to pull that's how hard it gets when you really want to put yourself out there, when you really want to be vulnerable, and when you're at that lowest moment. And like, when people were telling me not to do this and my heart was telling me I don't care, these are the defining moments that you're like, I choose to be brave. I don't feel brave. I feel like I've been cut open into 500 pieces and I'm bleeding everywhere. My brain is bleeding, but I'm going to choose to be brave, and I'm going to choose to be vulnerable, and I'm going to stick with it. So bravery and vulnerable is a choice, in my opinion, and in my life.
Yeah, I love that. We have, okay, so my friend Arjun, he was featured at one of our events recently. He has a really great question. I was wondering, Arjun, would you want to ask it yourself? Let's see if he's
yeah, sure, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Sarah. I'm a big fan. Yeah. I guess the question I had was, I have to read it. I'll just memorize. Okay, I'll see if I can get it back. The question was, when you're in new musical situations or groups, a lot of times I find that I get in my own head a lot. Like, even when you have confidence in your own sound and you're playing, sometimes you're in a new group and you're kind of like, okay, I got to keep it cool and not go too far, but like, I still want to be me. And like, I got to achieve that balance because I'm in a new situation. And I'm always in my own head with those new situations. And I'm wondering how you approach that in your life and career.
Yeah. Oh, I resonate with that like 1,000,000,000%. Oh my God. Like, I can give you so many. I'll give you this one example. I was on tour with this like Latin fusion group, and I get very excited. So my habit is pushing the tempo. But when you're playing Cuban music, you kind of have to naturally lay back. So they kept turning around and giving me like glares. And it was horrible. And I'm like, I know I'm like pushing the time, but like, it's not cool. Like, we're all still human anyway. And I started getting into my own head. And then when you start getting more anxiety, of course, what are you going to do? You're going to rush even more. So I guess for me, it's like, rather than trying to fight the moment and saying, oh my God, this is happening, oh my God, that's happening, I'm like, you know what? I put my feet on the ground. I feel the pedal. I feel the drumstick in my hand. I feel the sweat coming down, and I accept this moment. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm nervous and I'm uncomfortable, and I'm just going to do the best that I can and ride through the moment. That's it. And like, even if it's a mess up, what I do, or I try to do that, I record every single gig, every gig that I do. And then what I find, actually, that what's happening in your head is like way worse than what actually happened. So even if you want kind of validation from yourself of what the moment was, just record yourself. But like, I would say, just accept it. Yeah.
That's a good point. And you said confidence is a choice, and I thought I was like snapping. It's a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Questions are coming in, so let's see here. Caitlin, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, let me turn my camera on. Hold on.
Oh yeah, let's.
Hey, Sarah. How's it
Hi.
going? Nice
How
to
are
meet you.
you?
You're amazing. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
I've been playing with Cyndi Lauper for a couple years on and off. And one of the things, maybe not just her, but I don't want to like point fingers here, is staying true to who you are. Like, I'm a very animated player. I'm a lot younger than her and her band. So sometimes I get the feeling, and maybe have been told here and there, like, to not be so like on the drums and kind of just be more like, you know. Do you ever find like playing with an artist that they try to get you to like be different than who you are, and like what do you do about that?
Oh my God, you're like preaching to the choir. There's this one gig I had, I won't say her name. It was for a hip hop artist. And we played this festival, and she asked the music director to ask me to count in a song. So, I mean, like, if you're asking Sarah to count in a song, I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I remember the first set we did that. And then the music director came up to me during the break, and he's like, you know, can you like just dial it down a little bit and, you know, just like count, you know, very subtly. And I just did that. But then I stopped taking that gig because I'm like, I can't live like this.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense. Yeah.
So like now if I have to do a gig where they're making me tone down, I do it for the moolah. Otherwise it's like I'm just trying to take gigs now that I can just freely express myself.
That's cool. Yeah. I think I mean, I've loved playing with her, and it's so much fun. It's giant learning curve. It was obviously like the biggest thing I've done. But it's hard. I'm like, you know, so much, there's an age gap, and I'm like listening to them because they've been playing for 40 years, you know, professionally, and a lot of them have been with her, and I'm just kind of like, are they right? Am I right? Like, where is there a, you know, it's hard to know sometimes.
You know what? I struggle with that all the time because I get so many opinions from different people who are like pro, who are A level, and they tell me that I'm too chaotic when I play, or they'll tell me that I'm too clean, or that I'm too, and it's like once you, I think, really embrace that there's no right or wrong. Like literally there's no right or wrong. There's just opinions and perspectives. So your perspective is to be very expressive and very vulnerable, which is amazing. But then maybe because they're older, that's not their perspective, and that's, you know, how they see things. And you know, if you're having fun on this gig and you want to continue this gig, you know, maybe just kind of obey their rules ish if you want to. But and you know, I think of expression in a spectrum. Everything can be seen on a spectrum. Like I like to go to like 110, you know, but sometimes I have to bring it down to a 40. So maybe you can like find something in the middle or something like that. But there's no right or wrong.
Awesome. Good to know. Yeah. I wanted to piggyback off of Arjun's question because I get in my head too. So this helps a lot. I'm glad to see from someone I look up to, you know, and so thank you for answering that.
My pleasure. And also I see a cat behind you. Is that your cat?
Oh yeah, I got 3 cats.
I have a cat too. I am obsessed with my cat. So that's, I just wanted to say
Me
that.
too.
Awesome.
All right, cool. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Let's see, Eddie, you want to ask your question to Sarah? Everyone is, I feel like, comfy talking, so I'm just
Yay, more questions.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Oh, you rock. This is awesome. I'm loving this.
Thank you so much.
I got my favorite team in the playoffs, and I'm still watching you. So.
Yes. What team are you watching basketball?
Oh yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah. Oh yes.
Oh yes. What teams are playing?
The Sixers.
Oh, versus?
They're playing the Atlanta Hawks.
Oh, nice. Because my fiance, he's obsessed with basketball. So like I know he's watching right now too. But anyway, yeah, go basketball. But yes.
They're the closest thing to musicians in sports, to me.
True. I hear that. Yes.
Tell me about your gear. You always play. I love your playing because it's so clean.
Thank you.
Talk about your gear, please.
Yes. Okay. Let me just turn the camera around. So, so you want to talk about my, like, the technique with like hitting the gear to get the clean sound, or you like the sound of the gear?
Both.
Okay. Let's do it. Love it.
Yeah, you're so clean.
Thank you. Okay, so let me So for me, because I like to play grooves, but also I like to incorporate lots of notes. Cymbals, the sound is very important. And one thing I just want to start by saying is like, I didn't buy an expensive drum set until 5 years ago. 5 years ago, and prior to that, I was using a $300 drum set, and I was using like B8s, like Sabian B8s and stuff like that. I just wanted to start by saying that is because I think people believe that you need to have expensive gear to have a great sound or a clean sound, and that's really not true. It's how you do things to it and how you hit it. So I'll tell you why I'm saying all that. Anyway, so I use Yamaha Absolute Hybrid Maple drums. They are my personal favorite drums because they have tone and they have warmth as well. I use Remo drum heads, and I'll tell you, on my drum heads, I have like moon gels here, moon gels here, moon gels here, because I don't like to have too much resonance. Okay? Because for me, when I hit, I want the sound to be out. Like, I don't want it's like when you go like to watch Phil Collins play or something, and it's like too big. So it's like, get out of the way, get out of the way. What does that mean? You just add more pounds, you add more weight to the drum. So if I don't have moon gels, I didn't have moon gels back in the day, I would just get tape. I would take toilet paper, like scrunch up toilet paper, put it on the snare, and put tape over it, just mute it. And that's what I do to even achieve I have a moon gel here, if you can see it, to get the snare sound very tight. And another tip in terms of tuning that I like to do, so like I said, I like warmth and attack, and I like tone. I like a little bit of tone. You can hear a little bit of tone to it, so it's not just doom. So the way I like to tune is that I'm not a tuner, and like, people have a lot of like finicky ways, and I don't do that. Like, I just like spin it. So like, you go, I like to one here, diagonal, just to keep it even, but it's mostly a feel thing. But I have a rule, especially when I'm tuning toms, that I like to tune the bottom tighter than the top.
Mm-hmm.
That's my rule of thumb that I like to do. From my understanding, the bottom is pitch. If you want to have, if you want to go higher, you have to tune the bottom tighter or looser. And the top is not necessarily pitch. It's like, I don't know the exact word. It's not pitch, but maybe it's like the tightness of the head or the sound in general. But if you're looking for pitch, it's the bottom. So because I like to have a pitch with attack and warmth, I tighten this a little bit more, and this is looser than this. So that's kind of my rule of thumb. If I look at my cymbals, for me, my cymbals are usually dry. Like if you hear this, out of the way really quickly. Out of the way really quickly. And on my ride cymbal, I don't know if you can see it, but I have like 2 moon gels on the ride cymbal. And if I don't have any sort of moon gels, I literally just get tape. I'll put tape underneath, or I'll put tape on top, so I can see it's very dry. And when I'm playing fusion or jazz, I think it's important to have articulation on your cymbal. So making your ride dry, but there's still some crash capabilities, but it can move out of your way. I like to add some moon gels and stuff to it. So that's like how I approach drums, is just trying to make everything dry. And so I like to be as clean as possible. I like to pay attention to subdivisions. I like to be very particular about subdivisions. Like if I'm playing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 E, 2, 3, 4, 1 E, 2, 3, 4. I'm very like, what's the E? Ooh, ooh, what's the So to me, cleanliness in playing comes to the accuracy of subdivisions. And there's many ways. Like I had a phase where I was obsessed with getting my subdivisions so perfect. Now I'm at a point where, okay, this relates to time, and there's a whole thing about time that I like to. Maybe I'll just jump into that real quick. So, time and subdivisions. Okay, subdivisions and time. I like to see everything on a spectrum. Okay, so if I say my fingers is tight, let's say the elbow is loose, and everything in the middle of the spectrum is in between. So when I'm thinking of subdivisions, or when I'm thinking of time, if I'm thinking of it very tight, everything is extremely accurate and it's on the grid. So what did I do to strengthen that? And I want to say this is that every genre of music, you can't play like that. If you play prog rock, if you play like tight funk, there are genres that require your subdivisions to be on point. That's why sometimes when it's like you have to be tight to the metronome or you have to practice to a metronome, yeah, of course you have to practice to a metronome, but that's not a reference point. If you listen to blues, if you listen to like rock or country or even Indian music or Cuban music, it's not to the grid. There's so much in between in music. So it goes back to, yes, have a reference point to the metronome to understand subdivisions, grid, different tempos, and be on time per se, but not rely on the metronome to have all the subdivisions correctly in the grid. And that's a skill to have. So this is how I worked on my cleanliness of my attack, but also in my ears. So I'll give you an example. When you're playing music, while you're playing music, your ability to hear what you're playing while you're playing it in real time is one skill. The next skill is you record something and you listen back. That's another skill. So it's like you want to work on hearing your subdivisions and your time in real time and afterwards. So for example, when I was working on my subdivisions to make sure my E or or triplet, whatever, was on point while I'm playing, can I hear the E? Before I couldn't. Before I thought it was an E, but the E would be slightly off. And that came through playing, I'll play 8 bars. Okay. And then let me hear back. And when I was in school, I didn't have my mics or I didn't have Logic and all that. So I would just literally have like my iPhone and I would have my voice note of the iPhone. And I would listen back and then maybe I would like turn on a metronome. And there's an app called Polynome, Poly, then Nome. And this is one of my favorite apps to use because you can program stuff. So I would program E's. So on the app, I could hear 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, 4 E. And then on my iPhone, I would just record from a voice memo, 1 E, E. And then I would say, okay, let me listen to the metronome, the E. Is my E, when I'm playing back, is the E as consistent on the grid? And then what I did is when I like came home from school, and I would record myself. I look at Logic. You can open a grid on Logic where when you look at the grid, if you look at the 16-note subdivisions, you can see I would look at each snare hit. Okay. Is the snare on the E ahead or behind? Okay. And I would have that issue. All right, fine. How can I correct this? So I can see it now visually that it's not on the grid when I want it to be on the grid. So when I'm playing the E, what am I feeling? How does it feel when I'm dead tight? So now I know every time I'm playing the E, I can hear it when it's off. I can hear it when it's on, and I know what I have to do to keep it on. So that's like the awareness that really helped me build my cleanliness and tightness of an awareness of subdivision. And then after hearing it back, can you hear that the E, like, is the E tight? Is your groove tight? Or is it like, it's like understanding the spectrum. And this takes very deep listening. It's beyond like just, this is an E in a book, or hey, I just played the groove. This is like getting to the nitty and the gritty of it. Even so, there's this app changed my life. I recommend this app to everybody. It's called Live BPM. Like, this app changed my life because when I had that obsession of understanding time and being very good with time and working on my time, what this app does is while you're playing, you open the app and it shows you a graph as you're playing. Oh, you're speeding up. Oh, you're slowing down. Oh, and it's like, and you see the wave. So I spent years. What I did, every gig that I did, I would record every gig with my iPhone on my voice memo. I would come home at 3 a.m. I would listen back. I would open the app and I would see the graph. Okay, at verses, I'm slightly slower. Oh, okay, fill to the chorus. I'm speeding up, like playing this fill. All right, then I'm coming. So what are my tendencies? Because back then I couldn't hear that I was speeding up. I couldn't hear that I was slowing down. So, and I believe to learn anything in my experience, the more senses that you use, if you use your ears in real time when you're listening back, if you use your eyes, that, okay, I can see the waveform when I'm recording in Logic of the snare, like not being on the grid. If I use my feeling, like the touch, even like, if you watch like trap, hip hop, like R&B. Okay, R&B is very tight to the grid because you're playing to like drum machines and you're playing to tracks, so you have to be tight to the grid. If you look at the grip, it's I mean, there's fluidity, but you'll see it's a very like you can see the technique, you can see the body language. So whereas like if you watch Ari Honig, if you watch Antonio Sanchez, the way they play, their body is more liquidy. So all of these play a big role in terms of the cleanliness that you want to achieve. And for me, depending on the genre that I play, I like to have the intention of how clean do I want to be? How more raw do I want to be? When I was playing in church, playing gospel music in church, it would be to clicks and to tracks. And gospel drummers are very clean, like the cleanest in terms of every hit is super clear because you're accompanying a choir, you're accompanying a vocalist. And that was the hardest point in my life, is because I didn't grow up playing to a metronome. You know, in Indian music, it's very on the streets, it's very organic. So for me, when I played with people, it was like, hey, let's all lock in together rather than let's turn on a computer and lock into a computer. It wasn't like that. So for me to start playing in a church and playing to these click tracks was the hardest thing in my life. And I had to shape up really quickly to survive this gig. So it was awareness that, okay, now I'm playing tight. And then now let me give you an example on the other spectrum. So in that phase of everything needs to be tight on the grid, I had a recording session for a blues artist. I went in for the recording session and he's like, can you play this groove? I'm like, hell yeah, like this is like super easy. Start playing the groove and he stops the recording session. This has like never happened to me before. He stops the recording session and he's like, it's not right. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not right. I'm like, I'm playing all the parts. I'm playing the groove they asked me to. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, it doesn't feel right. And then he's like, listen to the demo. And I listened to the demo and I'm like, okay, the drummer is not tight to the grid at all. And here I was like, I had all my ego turned up. I'm thinking, hey, I've been playing to a metronome and my time is fantastic. And then right away I got like shot. And it was like, no, now in this gig, it doesn't matter. You're not supposed to be full. You have to lay back a little bit. There has to be some wiggle room. So trying to be clean, like for me, I like it's the whole perspective thing where I don't believe that there's one answer for anything. And that's the way I choose to live and play music, because I like to, again, be as versatile and get into different situations as much as possible. So I think for me, it has been a learning process to understand intentionally doing things and having the skill to intentionally make changes to apply and to adapt to each situation. But if you're a type of person that you know the genre that you want to play, you know what you're going for, then you don't have to do everything, and you just have to study exactly the music and the drummers who do what they do, and try to emulate that and understand their feeling, their posture, their groove, their sound, their tuning, the brands that they're using, the way they look. So I think all of these things kind of play a role in in terms of cleanliness or in your playing or whatever you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
Betty says thanks for that. That was a very maybe one thing you could tell Eddie is I don't know if you said what kit type you're using.
Okay, so the kit that I'm using, let's get a little drum techie. So the kit that I'm using, it's called the Yamaha Absolute Hybrid Maple. The Absolute Hybrid Maple is my favorite drum set to play, because again, it has the balance between warmth and attack. It's great. So here I have a 20-inch kick drum. Here I have 10, 14, and 12. So I go through phases like very frequently where like I'll put 10, 12, 14. Then I'm going to be like, I'm so bored of having the 12 here. So I'll like move the 12 here. So I have like the 12 on a mount over here. And then I'll say, okay, I'm tired of my Absolute Hybrid Maple snare. So I'll pull up like my steel snare. And then cymbals I like to change around. I'm not with Zildjian anymore for several reasons. So I'm with Istanbul cymbals now officially, and the cymbals, I think this is like must be a 13. I like smaller hi-hats because I like a crisp sound, I would say. This is a 17. The clap stack is something that I love. It's so popular and it's so necessary in today's day and age. I think
is that a Zildjian clap stack?
No, this is the
Istanbul clap stack.
Yeah, Istanbul Agab. Yeah, it's like amazing. And the person who made it, his name is Trevor Lawrence Jr. I tell everybody to look him up. He's like incredible because this sound, like it sounds like a sample, and that was the purpose of it. But yes, the clap stack, yeah. And the ride cymbal, I think this is like a 20 or 22. And again, I put mutes on everything so I can get some sort of. But again, I don't do this in every situation. Like when I played the Colbert Show with Tegan and Sara, like my setup, it changes on a gig to gig basis. So with them, I had 10, 12, 14, 16, I had 22 kick. My cymbals were all washy. There was not one mute on a cymbal because their sound is more open and big. So it varies, but this is like when I play with my band or like the fusion stuff that I like to do, this is the setup that I have for that.
Cool. You were mentioning you're writing some music you're working on right now.
Yes.
Is there a way you could describe that? And are there any kind of grooves that you've been developing that you call kind of, I know you call everything, you make everything your own, but is there anything you're excited about in that set of songs that you can share, play with for us in some way?
Yeah. So, a couple of things. I've been like on this journey of writing music for like the past 5 years, and unfortunately, some situations happen where like we recorded stuff in the studio but we couldn't put it out. And anyway, so if you go on my YouTube page and if you go to type in Pasek Sarah Thawer, you'll see the whole set that I did was all original music. And that's all original music that I did with one of my first bands. And that music was more like fusion. Like it was Indian influenced, like jazz fusion. Then there was one that was like Latin fusion-y funky. So you can like check that stuff out there.
Okay.
And I'm at a phase right now where I feel like I've always been in love with mainstream music, like, music that hits the charts. I've always been fascinated with simple melodies because for me, growing up, like listening to songs versus like music geek heavy music. So like the songs always resonated with me more. And I'm at a place right now where I'm trying to like, do more singing. Like I've been taking singing lessons. Okay, I was taking singing lessons for 15 years. Then I stopped when I went to school. So now I'm trying to get back into that and like singing and playing drums, writing hooks, and then like playing some different grooves, like playing pocket, but then soloing or playing complex rhythms over a hook. So these are some of the things that I'm exploring. Making some electronic music that's just like pocket based, and yeah, like I think right now it's like a new phase that I'm going through. Yeah,
that's exciting. We'll be sure to. I saw the video from a little bit of the Pasek video. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that was like all your own material there.
Yeah.
The other question I had was about, actually two questions. So in the music that you grew up learning traditionally and in your family, are cymbals part of that sound set at all? You talked about, bass and the tabla and different parts of the tabla and the other
Dolak.
the dolak. And the ring sound on the rim, but I was curious for and I know you said a little bit about ghost notes, and I figured the ghost notes and that information kind of fits into the cymbal profile too in some ways, but yeah, curious about your approach to cymbals within that context of your journey.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Indian percussion that is like small bells,
right,
like that you use. So for me, like it would be like hi-hat work, but I know that kind of still fits into like the groove or the drum, like being a part of the groove. But in terms of like cymbals, like, so okay, hi-hats or ride would emulate the and that kind of stuff. So that would also depend on like when I'm opening the hi-hat and closing the hi-hat. So when I was playing the karawa, I was going I would go so like that kind of awareness. In terms of cymbals, like I would say it's funny, like there's like cliches, like in so many Bollywood cliches, they would open a song and they would play a drone, and like, you know, somebody would sing something, and then you would grab mallets and go, you know. So I would say like that was a way we would include cymbals, kind of like what a percussionist would do. Like you use it as textures, and as statements, as in like Western music. Hey, we're in the verse. Hey, we're in the chorus. So yeah, statements and textures. Yeah.
And the other question I had was about like a good example, the stacker that you were talking about, that wonderful stacker. You used it in one of your solo sections as this, you know, it was like this consistent voice almost established its own backbeat. I don't even know where it was technically within your measure or meter. And I noticed like one time it seemed like it was fairly consistent for a while. Then
I threw it out.
You pushed it, but it was like, I was like, oh, like now my point of reference is this new point in time. And I was like excited by that, because I was like, oh, I could just, you know, you set that expectation, then you break it and you set a new one. And then I'm like so ready. Like, is she going to go back to the old one? Is she going to go with the new one? Or is she going to be like, that just got too crazy, I'm going somewhere else? I can't remember, but I was curious, like what, like you seem to have a really special way of processing all of that. And I know coordination and listening and all these things are definitely part of it. But is there some way that you like to think about, you know, putting in these static ideas while also having this like complete flow of freedom and around the kit within that? Yeah
100 billion% yes. So when I was playing, so if I'm going to so like things like that, it's like the pulse never changes. Like the beat 1 2 3 4 1 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So for me, it's always like the time never gets lost. But I like to trick, like I like to, because I'm like, okay, I'm getting bored of like 2 and 4. All right, let me move it. Then let me come back to it. So I like to leave it to the listener or to the people that I'm playing with. It's like, you can't rely on me to keep the time. I want you to. You know, so it's always like, I'm always thinking about it like that. I'm always like, even if I'm hitting weird things, my body is always like, always thinking that. And so the way I work on this is like, okay, if this is going 2 and 4, this is your ostinato. And for those who don't know, ostinato is just basically a repetitive pattern. So if this is my repetitive pattern, 1, 2, so, okay, I'm gonna 16 note subdivisions. Let's choose E. 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 Together. E. So you see, like, I'm taking just an E, just an and I'm moving it. I went here, I went here, I went here, then I went together. So if okay, one. All I did, I didn't stop. All I did is I stopped playing the 2 and 4 and made, so I went 1, 2, 3, 4, E, and it's like this thing where it's literally just push and pull, where you're always feeling 2 and 4, but maybe you wanna hit the stack on the end of 2 or on the end of 4. Then you leave a space and then you come back. So this is how I work on it, and this is like inevitably you're working on coordination, because if I want to keep my left foot on ands, yeah, okay, let's say ands, 1 and 2 and okay, this is my. So let's say I'm working on what, 3-way independence. I'm working on left foot, right hand, right foot. 1, 2. Now I'm gonna play some 60 note subdivisions on the kick. and 2 and 3 and 4. 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E, and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a EN, 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 E, 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, 1 EN, 2 EN, 3 EN, 4 EN, EN, E, EN, 2 EN, 3 EN, 4 EN, 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 1 E, a 2 E, a 3 E, a 4 E, a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. So it's like when you work out like all the subdivisions and then mess around, then okay, here I'm gonna play a solo. 1 solo time. Whoops.
Hey.
But that's like the way I like to think about it and work on that kind of stuff.
I just like want to point out, like, it's amazing when you turn it on, like that little look in your eye, like it's just like, that's what I'm talking about. I just like seeing your individuality in those moments is just so exciting. I mean, everything you just played, all the information, also so cool, but and super helpful for explaining like that concept. And one thing I noticed was like there's this juxtaposition that you've got going on, because like you're really into angular stuff. You really like those short sounds and those sharp syncopations. They're very like hup, 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 kind of, but then like the juxtaposition that I'm seeing is like your processing underneath is like extremely mindful and like require like to process all that subdivision accurately within that angular presentation requires like relaxation of the mind for concentration. And so I'm seeing this like incredible two sides, specifically in the way you approach things. It's just really fun to kind of recognize that there's different forces at play and both are so important.
I thank you for saying that. That means so much to me. Because again, it's like when we get into our own head, like the things you said, I don't think any of that about myself. Like I probably think like the complete opposite about myself. So like I appreciate that you're saying that,
Well, at least that's how like I would like if I had to do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, how would I, and some of these things I recognize that some of the bass drum permutation stuff remind me a lot of some Mark Juliana pieces that he's explored,
100%.
Locked in a basement kind of stuff. But but like, yeah, there's still like, I don't know. It's just, it's so cool to hear the inner thoughts on this inner monologue kind of thing.
Yes, and even you saw like when I was doing some of like the 3 kick drum patterns, I made a mistake. So like how I handled that mistake. So right now I'm very comfortable with you all. I'm having a good time, so I'm not anxious right now. So I took a second. I didn't like flip out, like I made the mistake. I did a quick breath, and then I got it the next time. And then I made another mistake on another subdivision. I took a quick breath, and then I made the adjustment, and I got it. But the reason I made the mistake is because the anxiety kicked in. That could I not, but then I made the adjustment. But if this wasn't a live setting, and let's say I'm like on like an hour of sleep and I have anxiety, I would have like been freaking out. So it's like, yes, there's this push and pull of like this mind, being mindful, being relaxed. Oh, I'm trying something, it doesn't come out. Let me be relaxed again and play this thing that's coming out spontaneously. And then even like, because what I showed you, I didn't practice that. I mean, like I haven't worked, so I was definitely a bit like, am I gonna like pull this off for them? So then I had to like trust my gut, and it's like just trusting in the moment, trusting that you can use your, like I was using my brain. I'm like, okay, I know my 16-note subdivisions. I'm putting the ands on the hi-hat, and I'm doing this in real time while I'm trying to show it to you. Okay, so the kick is going on the E, so that means, okay, it's going to go in between the hat. It's going to go E and then the hat. And then the N, and so it's like it's so many things like kind of going at once.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously like you hear the I know you called it like a non-melodic instrument by its classification, but like you see it very melodically.
100%. You know, I feel like it's because of listening to percussionists and percussion growing up. That's the reason why. And because if you listen to Tower of Power, if you listen to any of these like big bands like Led Zeppelin or whomever, the role of the drummer has always been steady groove, which is amazing, obviously. But when you listen to percussionists play, it's very melodic. So for me, it's like blending this like percussionist mindset identity with the groove. So that's where I find my identity when I'm doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head for sure. Okay, so we have a few questions that we're going to cool you down with in a moment, but one more that might get into some weeds for a little bit here. Mr. Ken, do you want to ask Sarah your question on your own? Let's see.
No, you're doing a good job leading the pack.
Okay, yeah. Well, just Ken was curious about if there's an Indian version of clave, and like I know that there are like my own thoughts on this. There's like longer phrasing often, and I've heard about talas and things like that, but I really feel ignorant about it. So maybe you can shed some.
I want to quickly fangirl for a second and just let Sarah know that I do follow you on Instagram.
There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me.
Woo!
Yay. Amazing. Okay, let's go down this rabbit hole now. Okay, so, all right. In Cuban music, there's the clave, right? You have the 2-3 or the 3-2. You have the rumba clave and you have the son clave, and it's like what, 4 or something. Now in Indian music, I would love to like break the concept of talas down very quickly. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. When people tell me Indian music, it seems to be very overwhelming. So I like to just break it down like this. You have North India and you have South India. Okay, when you have North India and South India, you have something called raga and tala. All right, raga is, for the lack of a better word, scales. Raga, but not necessarily. I like to say modes and scales, but it's like there's like modes and scales and notes. That's raga. Tala means rhythmic cycle. Okay, so that's in both North and South. Now the thing with North and South is that North Indian classical music and South Indian classical music is very different, yet very similar at the same time. So the talas that you hear in the North Indian system versus the South Indian system, there's crossover, but it's very different. Like when you listen to South Indian music, they say like South Indian rhythmic systems are way more complex than the North Indian system. It's like when you see like the clapping and like it's very strict. Whereas North Indian, of course, there's that stuff there, but it's definitely, in my humble opinion, it's like a little bit more melodic and not as tough as like the South Indian. And I'll give you another example to even paint a clearer picture. I like to say in North America, you have the drum set. That's like the heart of the music. If you go to North India, the tabla, T-A-B-L-A, is like the heart of North India. If you go to South India, there's a drum called the mridangam, M-R-I-D-A-N-G-A-M. I'll say it one more time. M-R-I-D-A-N-G-A-M, mridangam. Okay, so this instrument, for the lack of a better way of explaining it, I said tabla has 2 drums. The mridangam, imagine if you take these 2 drums and you paste them together and it's like a barrel drum. That's the mridangam. So North America, you have drum set. Tabla, you have in North India. Mridangam, you have in South India. So there's like the 3 distinctions, okay? And that's something very important to pay attention to. So for me, I grew up from the North Indian tradition, so I definitely lean more towards the tabla. So I want to talk about the tala in the North Indian system. So there's a tala and how it relates to the clave. I'll give you an example. There's a tala called rupak, R-U-P-A-K, rupak. And this tala is in 7. Every tala has a different rhythmic cycle. It can be in 8, it can be in 7, and you can have multiple rhythmic. So you can have a rhythmic cycle in 17 and in 14. In Western notation, you're like, oh, it's just 7 times 2. No, 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 no. There's a big difference between 7 and 14. And it's literally based on the accents. So a couple of things before I show you Rupak. In Tala, specifically in the North Indian tradition, there's 2 words. There's a word called bhari. Can you say bhari?
Bhari.
Everybody. Bhari.
Hurry.
Okay. Bhari means heavy, like deep and heavy.
Bhari.
Bhari. B-H-A-R-I. Bhari. Yeah. And then there's something called Kali. Can you guys say Kali?
Kali.
Kali.
One more time. Kali.
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 Beautiful. Beautiful. Kali is K-A-L-I. Kali means empty. All right. So you have Bhari, heavy, Kali, empty. In every Tala from the North Indian system, you have a combination of Bhari and Kali. And what Bhari and Kali does is that defines the clave from the heavy and the light. So when we have Rupak, the Tal Rupak, I'll just speak it first and I'll explain it. Din, din, na, din, na, din, na. Din, din, na, din, na, din, na. Din, din, na, din, na, din, na. Goom, goom. That's your clave. Goom, goom. And then when you're playing on the drums, let me give you a quick demonstration of that. And this is how I apply when I'm doing soloing even and other things like that and thinking of Indian music as a clave. So all of you, if you can mute your microphone because there's a slight delay for everybody, but I want you to chant with me, okay? So the syllables are tin, tin, na. You have to say it. Do you say it? Tin, tin, na. And then din, na, din, na. Tin, tin, na, din, na, din, na. And what I want you guys to do is when you see a Kali, Kali means open. Open. So I want you to do that. Tin, tin, na. Then when you have din, na, I want you to slap your leg, clap your hands, whatever, as long as you're hitting something. So with me. Tin, tin, na, din, na, din, na. Or you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or you can go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. So either of the 3. So I want you to chant with the mics mute, please, so that I can just like do a little solo thing. So while you're chanting that, I'm going to play a solo around that clave. So for me, when I'm playing a song in an odd time signature, which I don't, and I have an issue with saying the word odd time signature. I don't believe that there's such thing as odd time signature. And as soon as you label something as odd, then in your mind it becomes as odd. Then it becomes this thing that's like sacred and hard to play. Whereas like it's funny, like people who are tone deaf and who have no rhythm, like when I'd be playing Bollywood gigs, like thousands of people are grooving to 7 and they don't even know that it's 7. And it's like you open a book and they say, oh my God, 7. So it's like, it's a whole like perspective thing. Anyway. Okay. So when I'm soloing and playing grooves, I don't think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like I get too much anxiety. You know, it doesn't make sense. So I think, what is the Bhari and Kali? And this can be applied to anything. So I think, so if I'm thinking 7, what's my, okay, if I'm doing 3, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Boom, boom, go boom, go boom. So that's something about the clave. And then another quick example before I show you this in the application, that Zildjian live video that I did. Watch it again on your own time, please, if you'd like to. You'll see the intro. When you watch the intro, you're going to see the keyboard player going pa 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 pa, and then I start doing some stuff around. So check a little quick story. My piece was not written because the music director, the amazing Robert Sput Searight, rewrote the piece 10 days before, and I think I wanted to go towards a different approach. And they were on tour, and they're like, okay, we don't have time to rewrite something, so let's figure it out when we get to LA. I get to LA, we're at the studio, everybody has their song ready, they've rehearsed it, they've memorized it, and I'm like, are they gonna like send me back home? Am I even gonna like survive this session? So I get there jet lagged. I'm at studio at 7 or 8 a.m. and everybody runs through their pieces. And guess what time it is? It's 1 a.m. And then Sput comes up to me. What do you want to do for your piece? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, all right. I'm like, I want something in 3 and I want something in 7. And then the band came in. He's like, his genius was like, chord this, chord that, whatever, accent this, whatever. Ran it through once or twice. Next day, cameras on, go. Okay, I didn't even have time. So, like, that's why, like, I feel like it was a good performance, but it wasn't a favorite performance of mine because I know you could see it. Like, I was so anxious because I didn't really have time to shut it out. But this is what I used in that situation because it was such a high pressured situation for me, especially because my idols were all watching me, and it's crazy. And especially when it's like a drum event, like everyone's watching every single limb in, your hand. So it's like hyper focusing, and it gets nerve wracking sometimes. Anyway, so the intro was ba 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 ba. So that's my clave. Ba 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 clave, and that goes right into the tala, the bari and the kali. Ba ba 3, ba ba 3, 3. So my bari is gong 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 gong. So bari kali. So anything that I do in any time signature, if it's like a solo or anything, I'm always thinking which pulses are heavy and what's light, because when you're, when people say, hey, I want to be in the state of flow, I believe when you're in the state of flow, your brain should not be involved, right? There's a saying that my teacher used to tell me in university: when you're thinking, you're already late. They would always say that. So I would know that if I'm thinking too much, I'm out of my body. I'm not feeling it. So what helps me feel it is the bari and the kali. And I forget that I'm playing in 3. Or if I'm going, boom, boom, I forget that I'm in 7. And that's how you know you're getting comfortable with it. So I want everyone to go. You can say tin tinna, dinna, dinna. You can go 1 2 3 1 2 1 2, or you can go 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, or you can go 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. Everybody, but you have to go tin tinna, dinna, dinna. You're gonna be my timekeeper. All right, then you have to count out loud. Keep the time with me, and I'm gonna show you how I play the solo and how I go around the bari and the kali. Okay, so everybody, 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 kali. So look, my sound sources. I'm going hi-hat, light, heavy to start off. Lay down the land, right? Lay it down. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3. So da ga ga boom 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 boom, and that snare hit was 2 ahead. But anyway, like that's my approach to bari and kali and the clave. Yeah,
Thank you.
not a problem at all.
I've heard it described in all sorts of cultures as the doom talk.
Yeah,
Doom, tak, doom, tak, doom, tak.
that's right. Yes, exactly the same thing. Yes,
Thank you.
my pleasure.
Okay, so that was wonderful. We're going to jump over to Mike, who apparently y'all could hear at the beginning when I said I couldn't hear him. So Mike's already said a few words, but Mike is going to ask a few of our signature questions we like to ask every guest. So what's up, Mike?
I've been enjoying just being a fly on the wall this time, though. No worries for me, just sitting here enjoying it. Anyway, we have a couple of questions we like to usually ask our presenters just to get different perspectives on them. And I'll start with an easier one, or one that I think is an easier one, is what's an album or a piece of music that you've been just really digging lately? That's something that's just been inspiring what you're doing. Could even just be something that's just inspiring, doesn't even have to be music specifically.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll say, like, there's an album there's an so okay, usually I try to really keep my listening very different and frequent. So every couple of days I try to listen to a different album, but every day like jazz, funk, whatever. So but right now, today I listened to an album by an artist named Terrace Martin. Terrace Martin is a saxophone player, but he's a producer for like Snoop Dogg, and he plays with Herbie Hancock. So to me, he's like the perfect example of like how you can cross worlds. So Terrace Martin, what is that? Oh, I can't remember the name of the album, but the song that I've been listening to a lot is called Curly Martin. Curly Martin is my favorite song, and the drummer is Ronald Bruner Jr. Ronald Bruner Jr. is one of my favorite drummers because again, it's like, you listen to that song, it's like a shuffle, but he'll start with the shuffle, and then he's hitting again the accents off of it, and he comes back to the shuffle. And the band, they're like in the standard jazz, the head, like the signature hook, that the band keeps playing that, and Ronald is like hitting the different accents. So that song has always been like a huge inspiration for me. Yeah,
That's super cool.
That's
Yeah.
that's on the Velvet Portraits album.
Velvet Portraits, that's right. There we go. Yeah.
And Ronald is incredible, I have to agree. Just
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
yeah.
All right. Second question is something a little deeper. So this one, just I'm sure like all of us as artists or in some way or another have experienced like a time of burnout or just not being into what we're doing. And my question is like, can you remember a time like that and what you do when you're feeling just not inspired? What's sort of your go-to for getting around that kind of thing?
So I think we can all relate to this interesting time that we're all in with COVID and quarantine and everything. So there's a couple of ways. When life was out and about and gigs were all happening, the burnt out feeling that I was getting was from just being tired, and being tired, maybe playing the same thing over and over again, not feeling like I have new ideas. So I had to force myself to take 2 days off of playing or 3 days off of playing and then come back. I think it's so important. Like, I feel like in my experience, music consumes me. Like I'm constantly listening or analyzing the music, and I have to make a conscious effort to pull away from it. And when I do and I come back, I feel like I'm a new person. So yes, like disconnect and then come back. But when you disconnect, there shouldn't be any guilt. If you have any guilt, then you have, I'm even like, I'm repeating this to myself as I'm like telling you guys. Because like when I step away, I have too much guilt. So there shouldn't be any guilt, and that you're a human, and that there's life beyond just like playing paradiddles and trying to like be the famous Instagram drummer that I'm trying to be, you know. And also another thing, like, you know, this week for me, like personally has been a very hard week for me emotionally. You know, like one of my aunts and my neighbors, like she has pancreatic cancer, and I just saw her yesterday, and like it's her last days. And today, you know, we have our clinic, and you know, for me to even like go and brush my teeth, like I gave myself 2 hours to, you know, put on clothes today and to brush my teeth and to come down and play. But what helped me, you know, to even come and play today is just like gratitude. You know, it's like these simple things that, like, you know, maybe we take like eating food or like, you know, just being able to talk for granted. So finding the beauty in any moment that we can. So that's like something that I'm right now doing and holding on to, and that I try to do as much as I can. Yeah.
Yeah, that really like struck home for me too. Your the sentiment on feeling guilty for taking time away. 'Cause I know I felt that like hardcore when I was really deep into practicing, because I got into like my drumming journey at age 16. So I always felt like, oh, I'm behind the ball. There's people that started at before they were 10, you know? And it's like, oh, how do I catch up? I just need to practice a ton.
Yeah.
And that was a quick way to spend way too much time practicing and just burn myself out. And then every time you start to feel that, you're like, I shouldn't feel like this. People practice all the time, you know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I can even like, I want to even take that a step further, because like I fit, like we live in a day and age that everyone's like living their best life, and hey, look at me, I'm on top of Mount Everest, or look at me, you know, life is all happy and dandy. So it's like when you go online and you see everyone living their best life, and well, in my experience, I feel like, oh man, like I suck, like I'm not living this lavish life. So and then I've come to internalize that there's no such thing as ahead or behind. That's all a man-made thing. Comparison is a man-made thing. Like art, there's no such thing as better or worse. And there's like, and so like I tell this to when people ask me this question, it's like my motivation to practice is not to catch up to other people. I mean, it was when I was in school because I wanted to prove all the teachers that I can get through syncopation and all that. But after that, when I was like really getting into myself and my own world of music, I did it reverse. I said, what are my goals? Why am I playing music? And how can I practice efficiently and effectively to get those goals? Like I know so many people who want to play for a specific artist for their life. For like Justin Timberlake, what do you need to do? So when you kind of change the direction from who cares what everybody else is doing? Who cares if they've been playing for 10 to 20 years? But what do you want to do with your life? So that's like, that helped me kind of let go of comparison. But I still do it today by default, by accident, but then I catch myself and I take a step back. But yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It definitely resonate with that. We kind of live in a world where we see everyone's highlight reels and we don't see the actual life in between. We just get like the Instagram post of like, oh, check this out, you know? And that's what we see of everyone. And it's hard to pull back and understand that you might be scrolling through a feed and seeing like someone's best work followed by someone else's best work followed by someone else's best work that they spend their lifetime making. And you just see that constantly. So you're thinking, oh, I need to be on that level all the time.
You know how many times I've seen people online, how they play any instrument, and I see them live and I'm disappointed? I can't even tell you the amount of times. Or like, I've seen people live and the way they present themselves online, I'm like, sometimes it doesn't make sense. And even like when I do my videos, I try my best. Like if I'm in a good mood and I make a mistake and I'm like, I don't care, I'll put the first take because I want to be vulnerable. But in days where I'm like in a dark hole and I'm like criticizing myself a lot, I'll do 50 takes, 50, 20, 30 takes to make sure it's flawless. And then the next day I'll wake up and I'll still think it's crap. And then I go down that rabbit hole again of doing another 50 takes. It's this endless cycle. I think it's like eventually you just kind of surrender and just do the best that you can and like forget everybody else around you, you know?
Yeah. I've definitely been there too. I put out videos every once in a while, and there were definitely times I feel like earlier on in my journey where it was just like take after take after take after take, and it's like it's never good enough. And I had to get to the point where it's like I started to realize, oh, my best takes are usually within the first 5. So just do like 5, pick the best one, and upload it.
And it's like, again, like people don't resonate with right or wrong. They resonate with your emotion and your feeling. And I feel like the first take or the first 2 takes, it has that spirit. And then as you start doing more takes, the spirit starts going down and you start getting too much in your head, in my experience.
Yeah, and you have to like fake it as you keep going because you're less and less into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Were that all 3 questions? Isn't there one more question? I'm trying to remember.
No, there's just 2.
Oh, okay. Well,
they tend to spiral off.
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say, like, y'all have an amazing conversation dynamic going on. I'm loving it. I want to give everybody the opportunity to toss your, questions one more time up there before we wrap up. Also, I put a survey in the chat so people can let us know what you think of the event. We're all about feedback here, so we can make something that you're excited about. So we're always trying to improve what we're doing. And
I'm also going to throw our donation link down there. I know we haven't talked much about the organization in general over this. We've kind of just like got into it this time to try a different pacing. But I just want to remind everyone, we are a fully funded like nonprofit organization. So all of our funding comes from donations. So events like this don't happen without people donating. So even if it's a tiny amount, 50 cents, $1, it goes a long way. And we really do appreciate everything we get.
Can I mention something to Sarah?
Yeah.
We do this monthly. Stop by. It's worldwide. We get people. Didn't we have a guy from like Paris or like Lebanon or something one time?
Yeah.
The other side of the world. We were like, holy smokes, what time is it there?
Yeah.
Like, it's 6 a.m. It's like, okay, great.
I will stop by.
You are more than welcome, and invite your friends and enemies.
I will.
Yeah,
Most definitely will.
we want our guests to become our community members. So yeah, like, you know, tell your friends about Philly Drum Project. Let's get a Philly Drum Project in Toronto, you know.
Hey, you're more than welcome. Yes.
Yeah. And I wanted to add to everybody, I mean, so we're asking you to support us. Let's support Sara as well. She has this amazing clothing collection that she put out, which I think took up a lot of her time this year, probably at some point. And oh my gosh, like the most fun merch clothing collection you're ever gonna find, which captures Sara's spirit wonderfully. The leggings are especially fire. But I love them all, and there's something there for everyone. So make sure you're checking that out. Does anybody have anything else they want to say to Sara?
Any questions, like anything that I can help in any way? Ask.
Can I ask one really random question?
Ask.
Get it.
The random question I have is, I think one time you went on, you were like at a concert and A.R. Rahman invited you up. I wanted to ask you about that because I'm from one Indian to another. I'm, you know, I gotta ask about that.
Ask. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So in 2012, do you know Coke Studio?
They do like the series, or is it in Toronto, or I don't know.
No. It's in like, I think it's in Chennai, or like, it's in India. And it's like,
it's okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the Indian Coke Studio. So I get like a random email and like actually random emails from people. There's a big Indian music director, someone looking for you. And I'm like in school, and I'm just like, is this spam? And then I find out later that A.R. Rahman was like looking for me to come and go to India and play at Coke Studio, which was insane. And I told my parents, I told my mom. My mom's like, well, you wouldn't have been able to go anyway because you're in school. So I was like, okay, great. And then what happened was A.R. Rahman came to Canada. He came to Toronto in 2015, and their manager, and like they called me backstage, and A.R. Rahman's like, you rejected my invitation. He's like, no one has ever rejected my invitation. I'm like, oh my God, no. Like, I didn't, number one, the information wasn't even given to me clearly that it was you in the first place. Anyway, then he's like, they were playing 2 shows. And he's like, okay, how about you come to soundcheck and like come and jam with us on stage? So literally, like, they just called me up at the Sony Center in Toronto, and they were like, come and play. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's such a cool experience to have all the way back then too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Well, Sara, it's been incredible just to meet you, talk to you, hear a little bit more about you, or a lot more about you and your journey. Hear you play for us. I mean, it's just special to kind of get our own special show in some ways. We will be sharing this on the YouTubes as soon as possible, so you can relive this, dissect it, sample it, whatever you want to do, make your own art with it. But yeah, it's just so inspiring to talk to you, and like, I'm so excited to see what you do in your journey next, especially as like we get out there more and see where that the music you're working on personally goes, and see what next artist we find you with, and which way you're gonna figure out to play the drums that we've never seen before. I didn't even mention the feet on the snare thing, but like everybody I think is like, that's a Sara R right there.
Yeah, you know what? It's been such an absolute pleasure to chat with all of you and see all your beautiful smiling faces, and to see the beautiful comments that everybody's making. And
Yeah.
sorry?
What'd you say, Eddie?
One more time.
Come back again.
I will be back. Are you kidding me? You guys can't get rid of me that fast. I'll be back.
Yeah, we'll try to make it in person one day.
We are a very loving community. We've always been.
I can see that already. I can already feel that and see that. Yeah.
I'm still trying to decide who has the cooler haircut, Mike or Kirk. I think it's a tie. I'll give you a tie
It's
for
a
first fight.
My hair was longer last time. Everyone that's been around saw, but
Oh, very cool.
yeah. Thanks, Ken. Yeah, so it's been wonderful. This is always such a pleasure. Philly Drum Project is that safe space for drummers, and every time we sit down, we get into something awesome. So again, finally, one more thanks to Sara for making the time for us, being so cool, being so ready to put herself out there for us.
Keep on grooving.
What an amazing artist to work with. She was super easy on the back end of things, very professional all around, and it's just been amazing. So
we even had technical difficulties like rolling up into things, and everything went amazingly.
Yeah, like, you know, more for later, you know, but like I didn't feel like we missed a beat not having a little bit of the tech side that we were hoping to have. So yeah, Sara, thanks again. And everybody is sending such wonderful thanks in the chat. So everybody out there, thank you. We're gonna let Sara go. We're gonna wrap
If she wants.
Yeah.
We're not kicking you out, but we
Yeah,
tend
yeah.
to hang out. No, I'm serious. Like we
I
tend to hang out
appreciate
after the artist has hung up. So we're not kicking you out. That's all I'm saying.
I
We can keep the
appreciate that.
conversation going.
I know I hear my cat meowing outside the door. It's like her dinner time. She's very
Oh boy.
she does flips in the air. Like I've never met a cat like her before. She's a very easy girl. It's funny, as soon as I stop playing drums and she hears me talking, I can hear like the scratching and she's like calling my name. But I appreciate it. I want to hang. I wish I could, but she'll actually like rip my sheets and pillows apart if I don't.
We'll be here if you want to check back in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I want to say something to all of you. I want to say it's been an absolute pleasure to see all of you, to talk to all of you. Thank you for your attention and thank you for your time. Keep drumming, guilt-free. You know, I always want to say there's no such thing as anybody being better or worse. Music is an expression. Drumming is art. Art is an expression. You don't have too much or you don't have not enough. Just embrace who you are. Choose to be brave if you want to. Choose to be vulnerable. And, you know, a lot of people say that, hey, you know, when I was a kid, my parents would say, smile for the camera. And I was like, I don't want to smile for the camera. And it's like, I say this to say that, you know, I tend to be very energetic and like smiley on the drums because that's like who I am as a personality. But if you find that that's not you and you want to frown, frown. If you want to cry, cry. What's your voice behind the drums? What's your voice in life? And that's the journey that I'm on, and I just want to preach that to you. So much love to all of you. I hope I get to see you all in person someday, and so much love. Then thank you.
Toronto's not that far.
I know. I have been to
PDP,
Philadelphia.
what do you think? We'll talk. We'll set up a committee. I'll head up that committee. Road
let's
trip
do
to
it.
Toronto.
You know, I've been to Philadelphia like 4 years ago. I
Was that
played,
you?
like, it was me. But
was
yeah,
you.
I played at this small venue. But I'll be back. You guys come here, I'll come there.
Time to
We'll
get
plan
you back
something.
soon.
Deal.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Deal.
Okay, everybody, much love. We'll see you
Bye.
later.
Thank
you.
Bye. Thank you. Much love. Bye.